not hundreds of thousands of dollars, for something that anybody could go online and see. Not the sort of critical thinking that we are hoping to have in our next chair. The only evidence presented, which everybody saw, was his Division of Elections registration record, which showed that he had registered and unregistered and registered and is now still a registered Republican, but we don't know for how long. This body, again, just like, again, this is a private organization, and the rules that it operates under have some similarity to our Constitution. Even the president can be impeached and removed from office in spite of the fact that he's been elected by the public if the governing bodies, the other bodies of government, find sufficient cause. Nixon chose to resign rather than, I guess, go through a full impeachment based on the fact that he lied about something rather, in the big picture, kind of insignificant, but it brought down the presidency. In this case, we have seen Mr. Millett in the last session change his position on a number of things during the course of it. He admitted publicly that he did not support anybody in the presidential campaign. In itself, an egregious failure of somebody who purports to lead the Republican Party. I want to emphasize that the Republican Party in Alaska has been the most successful state party in the country. We have managed over the last 10 years to attain a 65,000 vote majority over the Democrats. We have 130,000 registered Republicans. In most districts, if you don't register as a Republican, you have no chance of getting elected. Now, a few people have registered that we probably aren't really Republicans, but that tells you how strong the party effort has been. We just took over the Senate. We cannot afford to lose the confidence and the trust of the other parties that we deal with. We just, once again, had to transfer money from the House Majority Fund and the Senate Challenger Fund out of our custody to the Capital City Republicans at the instructions of those two bodies and their targeting committees, which, if you read the rules carefully, if the targeting committee or the executive committee has charge of spending funds, we, in an excess of caution, had the instructions from the targeting committee. We also polled the SEC, and there was no objection. In fact, all but one person abstained, everybody else agreed that it was the appropriate thing to do. For those of you who have listened to the allegations of impropriety, let me point out that the ARC maintains sub-accounts for many of the entities that fall under it. Some districts have the headquarters maintain the accounts because there's a heavy burden and potential liability with all of the required reporting of heavy fines if you fail to do something. And it can be an innocent mistake, but the fines mount up very rapidly. So the two accounts in question are sub-accounts that we maintain, and we maintain them for the House and Senate leadership organizations so that they're not burdened with trying to, they've got full-time jobs working on our behalf. They don't have a staff politically to do all of the reporting and record keeping, so they rely on the party. But that fiduciary responsibility is based on trust that the money will be spent for the purposes for which it was raised. We didn't transfer any ARP money that came from the convention or from normal contributions. We only transferred money that was raised for the purposes of electing Republicans to office under the direction of both the House and the Senate. This is an example of what I consider irresponsible, lazy, shoot from the hip kind of actions that this man has been guilty of a number of times, and it's been a significant embarrassment to the party. And I think it's the responsibility of the executive committee to make sure that there's no further embarrassment. We have the right, and there have been threats of lawsuits. You know, there's been attempts to intimidate us. This stuff has gone to the Supreme Court before, and they've always been thrown out as frivolous. We can thank the attorneys for the Ron Paul organization that we really have a roadmap here of what's appropriate and what's possible for parties to do. That's all I have to say. I think most of the people here Again, a jury would be selected by not knowing anything about the case, knowing anything about the facts, and they would all have to be presented. The fact is, this group of people have been the participants. They've been the one dealing on a day-to-day basis with all these issues. They know what the history is, and they have the right and the obligation to make their decisions based on that knowledge. Thank you.
Mr. Ross,
thank you.
would
I
like to ask
have a
questions?
few questions. Mr. McQuarrie, in your comments the last time on the 17th of January, you talked about a rather frivolous lawsuit, as if to imply that somehow Mr. Merritt was part of that. Millett was part of that. Do you have any knowledge that he was part of that lawsuit?
Now, I was referring to it in relationship to this document, which was the motion to dismiss.
You have no knowledge that he was part of that?
I do not have direct knowledge of anything other than Mr. Millett supported Ron Paul.
Okay.
I don't know when he quit. He did tell this body that he didn't support anybody for president, which tells me that he did not support Mitt Romney, and I saw no evidence that he was supporting him during the period of time where he was acting as the chair-elect and the chair of the Finance Committee.
Perhaps if we only have 5 minutes, maybe you could ask him to answer only the question. Mr. McQuarrie, you referenced at the last hearing that we've heard a lot of rhetoric about how we should all be singing Kumbaya and putting arms around one another. Don't you think the Republican Party should be unified?
Absolutely.
Okay. You indicated that some of the people that participated in the convention made a totally inappropriate attack on the Republican Party. What was that totally inappropriate attack that these people made?
Hello?
Well, one example was, for example, the question of the party's behavior and its fiduciary responsibilities, and the call for an audit in public without even asking, without even attempting to look at the public record and understand. That, to me, is divisive, and it does not display the kind of discriminated intelligence that we need. We don't want people that go off half-cocked all the time.
So you think that because they asked for an audit, that was a totally inappropriate attack on the Republican Party?
When it was not addressed to the party itself.
Well, it was at convention, wasn't it?
When it was addressed to the media, and when it was addressed in such a way as to imply knowledge of or expectation that impropriety would be found, it was offensive.
Can you tell me why there hasn't been?
Let me try to get the show back on the road. You're asking about the convention, and you're talking about afterwards. I would think a more responsive answer to try to put the train on the tracks was the attack on Senator Barrasso.
You want me to go into that? I deliberately...
I'll have some questions for Mr. Riedrich later, but you know, Dennis Cummings was a judge on Bethel, and he got into trouble for attempting to help the prosecution.
I was trying to help you get an answer to your question, sir.
Okay, thank you. I don't suggest one to the other, to the person I cross-examined.
Let me
ask the question again. You said some of the other people that participated in what you would consider to be a totally inappropriate attack on the Republican Party. What was the totally inappropriate attack on the Republican Party at the state convention?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is there such a thing in this proceeding as a cross-examination in that fashion?
It's probably going a little beyond what I'm giving him a fair amount of latitude to ask, to explore. I would like for him to respond to more of the item rather than trying to dig a hole that I don't quite understand what the benefit of it is to his client.
I'm trying to show that what he...
If you've got somebody tracking the time, I'm happy with that.
Yes, yes.
And you've got
Julie's
a minute and 20
and
seconds left. I stopped the clock for this.
I will grant you 2 more minutes over and above what we have right now, since the process has been very tedious.
I'm trying to show that a lot of what Mr. McQuarrie said has been rhetoric.
Well, okay, then let me answer. I was deliberately kept the charges fairly narrow to make this the least embarrassing to the party as possible. But you have asked a specific question, so I will say, and this is hearsay.
No,
but
don't testify as to hearsay.
Hearsay
Hearsay
is
is allowed
admissible
here.
in this environment. Because, and the fact is, most of the
We're
people
not going to
here are
respond to
witnesses.
hearsay charges, sir.
So
It's
I will
inappropriate.
simply answer your question. One of the inappropriate things that I saw is that reputedly, a young lady sitting at Mr. Millett's table got up and led a shout down of not just our own Senator Murkowski, but also of Senator Barrasso. It was entirely inappropriate. She claimed to be a veteran, claimed to be a Republican, and searching the Division of Elections records, we found out that she'd been a registered Democrat for the last 10 years.
So what
And-
was the totally inappropriate attack on the Republican Party? Sounds to me
Yeah.
like she attacked two senators. What was the attack on the Republican Party?
It was, they were there at our invitation. Common courtesy. Respect for the office, even if you have no respect for the people, is something that Republicans should pay at least lip service to.
You stated, sir, that most of the people at the convention that were disruptive participated only because they were supporting somebody other than the Republican candidate for president. Is that correct?
That was my observation.
Who was the Republican candidate for president in April 2012? I thought we didn't pick the candidate until August.
Let me put it this way then. They were people that were aggressively and abusively promoting one candidate to the point where they were trying to intimidate other people.
Somebody that
I'm not
was
sure what the motive was for the shout down of the two senators. That seemed totally senseless.
someone that
And,
was not your candidate they were supporting. Is that correct?
At that point, I didn't have a candidate.
They did, though. That's your statement?
I'm not sure what motivated them. Some of them appeared to be supporting Ron Paul. Some of them appeared to be primarily interested in creating chaos.
Can you tell me why there hasn't been an audit for 12 years of the Republican Party, even though the rules require it?
I can suggest why I think that would be the case.
Well, aren't you
And
the
I
leader
have
of the
suggested
party?
it, and as a former national committeeman who sat for many years in the party, you have a board of directors that gets a monthly report, but not only that, you have a rigorous reporting requirement on both the federal and the state level that accounts for every dime. It tells you every person that contributes to the party, in what capacity, either federal
30
or
cents.
state, and it's all there. So an audit, technical term, an audit is a very expensive thing.
So you don't have to
We
follow
are
the
the
rules.
most cost-effective organization in the state. We have very low overhead. We don't raise money to pay for audits. We raise money to elect candidates, and we let the state and the
10
federals
seconds.
take sure of, keep track of how we're doing it and whether we're in violation of any law.
So you don't think you have to follow the rules that require an audit?
Time.
I simply, as rules chair, suggested that since it hadn't been done, and since nobody previously had requested it, other than Mr. Millett in his rhetorical gyrations in front of the press, that it probably would be a waste of time and money, and I didn't know anybody that was wanting to go out and raise $40, $50, $100, $500,000 to pay an auditing firm.
I have one more.
And not I, but the SEC and the
Point of order,
SEC.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I heard the clock stop.
It
Yeah,
did.
yes, I will give Mr. Ross the opportunity to ask one more question, and I would like the privilege somewhere along the line to ask Mr. Ross a question on this particular process. I haven't figured out how to do that, but I will think about it.
Okay. Did you not support Senator Lisa Murkowski in the 2008 general election against the party's nominee and give her campaign money?
I gave her campaign money, and I believe it was after it was over. What I did do, along with about 50 other Republicans, was ask our candidate to be honest and transparent about some of the accusations against him. I felt that we needed to have that cleared up satisfactorily. I didn't want to get in another situation such as we had, which you were very familiar with, is with Mr. Lindauer. And the Republican Party cannot afford to field candidates or elect officers who have questions.
So you did support someone besides the nominee?
Not until after, yes.
Did you support the nominee?
Once she won the primary, I did contribute, yes.
Did you support the nominee?
Did I support Mr. Miller?
Yeah.
I did not support Mr. Miller by